What if you could have your sewer line replaced without digging up a single shovel of dirt? That pipe there in the corner behind the water heater is one of 3 sewer lines draining out of this house of all things. This one here, up ahead, is the second line we're going to address as it ties into that first line I was just at. What I'm referring to is an epoxy sewer liner, which we'll be showing in this video a bit of prep work involved, and then the liner itself. I have to first clean this pipe out so I can make sure the high-speed auger machine here can get through and cut open this branch line after the liner covers over the Y fitting as I rehabilitate the first pipe. It might sound confusing, but you'll see as we go along how it all comes together. Once I get eyes in the pipe and make sure it's all good to go, I'm going to pull this all out and put a different head on the end of this high-speed machine, which will cut open the liner, or reinstate, as we call it. Then I make sure the problem sewer line I cleaned out a couple weeks ago is still good to go, and take note of the length I'm going to need because I'll be inflating the liner from this point. Then back in the basement, I take a look and see where the camera is coming through just to get a quick visual, and then I just decide to start swinging until something falls apart, because none of this cast iron is going to get used anyways once the liner is in place. Something's happening. Cool. And then later on I'll add in some PVC, and this point will be good to go. Okay, let's unload some items from the trailer and make plans to start the liner install. Here's where things start to get serious. Of course, I have to measure and mark my length, being mindful of how this particular liner stretches out when inflated in the host pipe. And here's the heart of the operation, the Tubo Lino 700 model, made in Sweden, which has been a great inversion drum for me, and the tight basements I have to drag it down into. Then the calibration tube is rolled out to length, giving myself plenty of extra. This tube inflates into the liner and holds it in place while the epoxy cures. And then after cutting the liner and the cal tube, I spray down some mineral oil to slick it up so it can pull through itself. It's like pushing a shopping cart. Then I tie on a pull rope and the hot water hose and roll it all up into the inversion drum. The rope that's in the drum stays there, and I simply tie on whatever piece I need to with this quick release bowline knot, I believe it's called. I carefully make sure it lays flat on the spindle and rolls in neatly so nothing snags. The cal tube, of course, needs to stay flat as well, and the drum and spindle is wide enough inside I can layer this 4-inch cal tube side by side, and then I can do the same for the liner material as well. Then I start the vacuum pump to help remove the air, which makes saturating the liner with epoxy way easier and honestly very necessary. I attach my funnel and set it in my homemade cup holder. It's a collapsible workbench. I can break down and put in my trailer real easily. Once I calculate how much epoxy I need, based on the length of the liner, I weigh out and make sure parts A and B here I have left over from previous jobs come to the right weight and get them ready to mix up, with some extra of course. And I have my handy Milwaukee Super Hog for that. This is a 4-to-1 ratio epoxy with a 60-minute working time. They call it Quad Cure by Source One Environmental. I get it. I don't know who makes it. Regardless, 60-minute working time, unless you have high temps, you know, or it sits too long in the drum wrapped up around itself. But getting the UV cure system is just a matter of time, I tell you what. Today was only about 35 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit out, which gives us plenty of extra time to work with versus 80-degree day. I did have the epoxy in room temperature, otherwise it would have taken much longer to soak into the fibers of the liner. So there's always that fine line you're looking for with epoxies and liners. So here the first few feet of the liner doesn't need any epoxy because I'll be cutting it out anyways and disposing of it. So I've dropped the thickness to bare minimum to squeeze the epoxy through to the main part of it that does need it. Then I set my thickness based on the manufacturer specs and get rolling. I guess I missed recording rolling in the liner to the inversion drum, but it's basically the same as the cal tube, which currently is still in the drum since it gets inflated after the liner goes in. And this is how the liner gets attached to the nozzle, and air pressure coming out of the nozzle will press on the end of this liner to invert it into the host pipe. Simple enough, right?
Uh-huh. Okay. Here it comes. do is
here's where it starts to get a little tricky. I have to start guiding it toward the house through this clean out T in the ground. Since I already know it's only about 18 inches down, I can easily coax / guide it the way I need it to start with the use of my handy piece of PEX here I'm going to grab in a bit. And then it's not really anything they teach you, you know, in any instruction manual or training. But I've gained a few tricks over the last year of doing these liners. And of course, always hope to add to it as I go. It's one of those things you start picking up and kind of get a feel for it.
yeah, we're going. All right. Well, we're building. Low pressure. Come on. Oh, come on. You can do it.
So this is where things start to get a little tedious. I'm not exactly sure what really happened, what the hang up was. I suspect it was bunched up at the bottom of this T as I tried inflating it into the sewer, thus putting too much resistance on it to be able to pull it along the entire length of the pipe it already was in, plus to pull it through this T. There's not a whole lot that I can tell you what I did besides play around with it, eventually coax it through the rest of the way.
It's getting kind of hung up. Right there.
Honestly, looking back, if I knew it was going to be this time consuming, I probably would have just taken my drum down to the basement and inflate it from the basement out instead of from this clean out access in.
Finally went. I feel like it was hung up here as it went, took that sharp right turn.
But eventually it actually did inflate all the way in.
Lovely.
And I'll show you here what it looks like inside the pipe.
Yeah, look at that. I just plastered it with epoxy. And there it is. Perfect.
So the important part's over. And then I moved on to the next step, inflating this calibration tube inside the liner, which then also pulls in the hot water hose so I can heat up the entire length of the new liner and cure it completely from proverbial stem to stern. It's important here to get the hose clamps just right, just behind the lip on the end of this nozzle. Otherwise it will pull itself off under pressure and when it gets hot.
There we are. I think we got plenty.
Of course, I had to coax the calibration tube around this tight turn down at the bottom of the T, So that's the only hang up I had to deal with here, which was expected. But other than that, it goes in without a hassle, and then I get ready to fill it with hot water to cure the epoxy.
There we go. It outran itself. Oh, there, it did it again. There we go. Alright. It's going in.
And here's what it looks like inside the basement as it extended itself past the pipe. I guess I didn't need that much cal tube. The water hose and the pull tape is inside this part. I was looking at, I was making sure.
I'll put some tension on it.
The end of the water hose was all the way through, and that's what I'm looking at right now. To ensure the whole length has hot water in it.
It's cool.
Since I'm inflating the liner from the downstream position and water does not flow uphill, of course. So all that's left to do is get the tankless Renai water heater cooking.
Nice.
Gotta hook up hoses, electricity, and propane, and get water moving through at this point to maintain pressures, maintain the temperature, and then at some point I had to swap out the propane tank when the one emptied out to keep that water heater set to 185 degrees Fahrenheit.
Let's try to keep it.
Now I gotta find a way to go about keeping the end of this cal tube supported. And you can see the water coming through the hose. If you look closely down there, and then yeah, I say, as you can hear me, it's hot.
Oh yeah, it's hot.
And all I gotta do is make sure I can support this so that that PVC is at a good, 1/8 inch per foot fall. So I can get ready to connect new PVC fittings to it after this is all done. And now we wait. Okay, after it's all done, I pull the cow tube out and check with the inspection camera to see how it looks. And as I get it in here and I push it in, you'll see in a bit I stop to check the branch line coming from the other part of the house.
Beautiful.
Because I've actually already cut through the liner to reinstate the existing branch pipe. There, I'll bring up the inspection camera monitor here and you'll see in a bit.
Come on. There's that. Here's their PVC. All that done under here, under here, under here. It comes up under here. I made some marks from last time I was on site. And then landscaping here, right here. Takes a turn under this. Patio, hot tub, all up under here, over here, up in this tight access between the fence and the house, and straight in without digging it up.
Here, okay, real quick, I took these videos with my cell phone. This is what it looks like after it covers over the cast iron tee and transitions to this PVC, which then I'll attach a few fittings to and join on the existing cast iron coming down from the bathroom above me. And then it's done. Time for cleanup, and the house is back up and running. Take a look.